Stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement is the process by which the project leader involves the people or groups who may be affected by the project or can influence the project. Stakeholders may support or oppose the project. They can be influential in the organization or within the community in which the project operates. Stakeholder engagement is defined as the process for a two-way dialogue to find out their interests, issues, and concerns. The purpose is to involve them in the decision-making process of the project. This is different from stakeholder communications that seeks to send a message to influence or agree with a decision that has already been made. Stakeholder engagement requires an emotional involvement and commitment. Stakeholder engagement is built on the premise that the people or groups who can affect or are affected by the project should be given the opportunity to comment and input into the development of decisions that will affect them. If they are not actively asked to participate, they might demand it later, creating a crisis situation where the project leader has to react to those demands. Engagement is not an end in itself, but a means to help build better relationships with the various project stakeholders. Meaningful engagement occurs when the project leader chooses to establish relationships with the stakeholders as a means to manage the impact of the changes that will be created by the project. Engaging stakeholders early in the project allows a wider acceptance and participation in the project. Stakeholders feel that their voice is being heard and that they are part of the solution to solve the problem rather than just a resource needed by the project. A successful and effective stakeholder engagement process is therefore essential to project success. Stakeholder engagement needs to be managed like any other project management process. It should have a well-defined strategy and a clear set of objectives, deliverables, resources, and allocation of responsibilities. All team members and senior management should be made aware of the plan and understand why it's being undertaken and the implications it may have for project outcomes. The stakeholder engagement process consists of the following steps: an engagement plan, understanding of the needs and the wants, goal alignment and prioritization, building trust, consult, implement, and finally monitor and evaluate. The first step involves identifying the basic objectives that the project wants to achieve, the key issues to address, and the prioritization of stakeholders in the engagement process. The plan will identify the resources needed, the roles and responsibilities, a timeline, the type of engagement, and identification of assumptions and risks. The second step seeks to have a good understanding of the needs and wants of the various key stakeholders. Depending on the type of stakeholder, the needs and wants can vary significantly based on the levels of interest and influence. Wants and needs can include participation in project decisions, open communications about project risks, how the project will address issues related to human rights and gender, and how it will manage transparency, accountability, and participation. In this analysis, the project leader can identify the critical issues and concerns, key personalities, and contacts amongst the stakeholders. Using this information, the project leader, with the support from team members and even senior management, can prepare the stakeholder engagement strategy. Goal alignment means that the greatest level of success may be achieved when the interests and objectives of the project and the stakeholders can be aligned. It doesn't mean that the interests and objectives are necessarily the same, but common interests can be identified and will be used to leverage the engagement strategy. For example, the project approach on gender can be a common interest between the project and the stakeholder. This can be used as part of the engagement process. In this step, the project leader will start the approach to prioritize the engagements with key stakeholders that will be part of the consultation process. Building trust is the most fundamental part of a meaningful engagement process. It requires careful attention and diligent planning and preparation. The project leader needs to be aware of the issues that can affect trust, different levels of interest and influence in the stakeholders, language and cultural barriers, and even past experiences with projects and organizations that created a lack of trust in the engagement process. Building up trust results in information being shared both ways, communication becoming an enabler and not a barrier, and requires a significant willingness from both parties to understand the other's viewpoint and find common ground. Consultation is the act of engaging with the stakeholders to better understand and find methods to address their wants and needs and their issues and concerns. The people in charge of doing the consultation, which will include the project leader, will engage with the key stakeholders that were prioritized in the previous steps and will initiate a consultation process, not only with stakeholders that are the more vocal and have more influence, but also with those who are less vocal or powerful. The consultation should be inclusive and representative. The consultation will seek to prioritize the issues and recommendations. Once the consultations have taken place, stakeholders should be informed on which of the suggestions have been considered and what measures the project will take to address their concerns. Issues that are classified as priorities should particularly be addressed. Once there is a decision on the most appropriate course of action, the next step is to formulate proposals for action and seek feedback from stakeholders to each proposal. This step includes the actions to track the reactions from stakeholders to the proposed actions. And finally, the project should implement the recommendations. The final step is to monitor and evaluate the implementation of the recommendations and to see if they are creating the expected results. Stakeholders should be contacted to help evaluate implementation. This is when the stakeholders can review the progress made and identify opportunities to improve the process. The progress will be measured against the initial baseline. Information obtained during this step should be reported back to the stakeholders, taking into account that monitoring and evaluation is an ongoing process. Successful stakeholder engagement requires a commitment to actively engage with the stakeholders, listen to them, build a relationship with them, and then respond to their concerns in a mutually beneficial way. Engagement is not an end in itself, but a means to help build better relationships with the communities and people that will be impacted by the project, which in turn results in improved project results. Stakeholder engagement is about maintaining relations with the stakeholders over time. The result of communication efforts in the past will reflect on future communications. If stakeholders have had a positive experience regarding providing feedback or raising concerns, they will be more likely to raise them in the future. Negative experiences will discourage future contributions.